Hey homestead friends, I so much love sending videos out there for everyone to watch, and I love having all of these chats that we get to have, and it brightens my day when people come and comment, and I really love it. So I thought this time I'd give you a little bit of a homeschool video. Homeschooling is becoming much more mainstream recently. However, there's still like a lot of misinformation or just not really understanding how it all works. And so I thought I'd take you with me as I unschool my kids and what that looks like, how it works for how our state requirements go and everything like that, and how we incorporate it into our normal family life, and then answer some very common questions. So that's what today's video is going to be like, and I am really looking forward to hearing back from you guys.
You guys don't know how it's done. Oh!
Our day starts with chores and getting our routines done, and then just some independent work. Do you want to use one of the plastic forks?
What's a plastic?
Jeez, it's a video. Can I show them what we're doing?
Yeah.
In the morning, I find it easier to tend to my preschoolers and my little ones, so we kind of do kindergarten preschool work. So while my kids are busy right now, I figured I'd take a couple minutes to just add in like questions that people commonly have about homeschooling. And the first one I want to address before I answer all the other ones, right? Because it's kind of like the forefront of a lot of people's minds who don't homeschool, is basically, what about abuse? So I've had people come to me and be like, well, what about educational neglect? Okay. I've had people come to me and be like, well, what about people who just want to hide what they're doing behind closed doors, and then nobody ever sees it, nobody ever finds out. Hair's looking a little bit crazy today, you just have to excuse it. But I want to preface this with a few studies, because I double checked and everything. I wanted to make sure I was very well informed on this. There is no remarkable difference between public and homeschool in regards to like abuse levels, like who gets more abused, with the exception of illegal abuse, and that happens more frequently in religious schools, unfortunately. So just, yeah, unfortunately. But as far as that goes, other than that, everything is pretty much exactly the same across the board. And I can tell you from experience that it's just as simple to hide abuse for a person, for parents who are going to abuse their kids in one way or the other. It's just as simple when you are public schooling as when you're homeschooling. It really is. There's so many countless kids who are in public school that their parents just say, this is a family secret. We don't tell people this. This is personal. You can't tell anybody about this. If this happens, tell them this. And that happens in public schools just as much. And the stories that you'll hear of people who are like, I was homeschooled and I was so isolated and everything like that, I want you to look a little bit deeper, because that was not homeschooling's fault. That was a cult. Okay? Like, like 99% of these people who are like, oh, I was so isolated and my parents were so strict and they beat me and everything like that. That was a cult. That was a religious cult that happened to homeschool. Isolation like that, yeah, it's not good, but there's no way for a government to dictate whether you are a hermit or not. I mean, eventually, truth comes out, but yeah. So I wanted to address that first, that if a person is a bad parent, they're going to be a bad parent no matter what school setting their kid is in, okay? So make sure that you are comparing schooling types, not necessarily parenting types, religious types, things like that, okay? All right, so now we can get on with the other questions.
Cat.
Mm-hmm. Remember this?
The cat.
My 5-year-old saw that her brothers wanted to read, so she picked out a reader too and asked if we could practice some reading skills. So that's what we're doing here. This is her first time actually doing this, but she usually takes her cues from the rest of the family. Rat. Good, rat. Next part. One of the most common questions or comments is like, kids need to experience XYZ, or they're never going to be able to do XYZ in the real world. Hi. Oh, okay. So like, children need to experience bullying or strife or disagreement or anger or problems or whatever, or they're never going to be able to handle that once they are an adult. Or kids need to learn to be organized and line up and work with a planner and have like a strict routine schedule, or when they get to be an adult, then they're not going to know how to do that, right? They need to know how to socialize with other kids their same age, so that they can socialize with people their same age when they are adults. Kids need to learn how to take orders from somebody, so that when they are an adult, they can take orders from their boss. And there's a lot of people that feel like that can only be accomplished or is best accomplished in a brick and mortar school. I'm kind of lumping private and public together because there's not much of a difference when it comes to that. And while those things are attainable in a brick and mortar school, that's not usually how adult life actually works. In the workplace, as adults, we are not stuck with all 35-year-olds and one person that's older than us telling us what to do. We don't have to raise our hands to talk to each other. We don't need to ask our boss permission to use the bathroom, usually, unless we have a sensitive job where, yeah, that makes sense. I see you, Rosie. Sure, we have to line up, but that's things like the post office, grocery store, things that homeschoolers are doing constantly. They're going with their parents to all of these things. And as adults, do we handle problems the same way that children are taught to handle them in public schools? Well, let's investigate that.
It has like little furs. Don't worry, it won't sting you if you just do it gently. If you put your hand below it.
So, children are taught that if they have a problem, then the first thing that they need to do is go and tell the teacher. So they bring it to somebody who's has more authority, and then the teacher doles out a consequence, basically. Yeah. And the consequences are very rarely directly connected to the actual crime that was perpetrated, right? You know, it has to do with, oh, well, let's separate you two, or that's not a big enough problem, or something, right? As adults, we just can't do that. We can't take our problem to somebody higher than us unless it's a very serious problem and you would want to include the police or something, right? Or the courts or something like that. Most of the time, as adults, we need to process through the problem. We have to get along with people because it benefits them and us, not because we're forced to be in the same place. Yeah. And we need to learn to work with people who are different than us, not necessarily our peers. So teaching kids to deal with problems the way that kids deal with problems is not really a sustainable way to deal with problems, because once you get to be an adult, there's nobody who's just going to listen to you whine. Yeah. Your boss doesn't want to hear it. Your boss does not want to hear it. You're going to chew on it. It's so silly. Your boss doesn't want to hear it. And if you're going to be married with family and all that, who are you going to go to? My wife doesn't like the kind of toothpaste I bought. Get over it. Sorry. Just deal with it. Talk with your wife. This is something that, so homeschool kids oftentimes, good job. Not right now. I gotta do this video. I'm doing a video right now. Can you please stop? Because I've asked you to stop, and I'm videoing right now. I know, I am videoing that. I'm videoing me talking to you. So, because I'm in the middle of a video, and because I've asked everyone to let me do my video, okay, well, I am telling you now. No, not right now. Thank you. So a big part of, as you can see, my 5-year-old had a problem. She came to me and we talked about it, and then just like she would need to do as an adult, she figured out an alternative solution instead of relying on me to do it all for her. Is that fun? Don't put it in your mouth. That's going to be dangerous. No, don't put it in your mouth, please. Thank you. That's better. Yes, now you can put it in there. Good girl. Homeschooling on the day-to-day is about a lot of problem solving. So being able to do all of those things that they want you to do, my kids don't get along with each other all the time. The co-op that they're in, my kids don't always get along with the other kids. They have plenty of opportunities. We have chess clubs. We have, some people do sports. We don't personally do sports just because my kids aren't super interested in it. But science clubs, all sorts of stuff. There's other ways that kids get together. Even just being on the playground together during the summer, they are encouraged to figure it out on their own with guidance from adults who can say, here's how you can do that. And they encounter a lot of different variations on how people deal with those problems. So the question goes back to, well, how will they know how to deal with it unless they've experienced it? Kids who are homeschooled do experience it. They experience everything that a public school kid does but in measured amounts at the right time so that they're not overwhelmed and anxious. If they are overwhelmed and anxious in the public school, there's not really a whole lot you can do. You can't stop the lesson for 24 kids just to help one kid. But you can at home. You can say, hey, let's take a little break from this. We'll come back to it and we'll figure it out in a different way. And a way that's going to be something that they can use into their adult life. Okay, so here's home. We are right here in Iowa, right? Underneath Iowa, underneath the United States is Mexico. And down here it's like kind of yellowy goldy part. This country is Guatemala. So those peas came from Guatemala all the way up to Iowa.
Okay. Do we have any food from the other side of the world?
Well, let's see. Do you mean exactly the other side of the world, or do you mean China?
I know we have Chinese food, but all the way.
So exactly the other side of the world would be like right in the Indian Ocean, but close to that would be Australia. China is kind of on the other side of the world if you go like this, but it's still in the northern hemisphere. And you know what? We probably do have some food that was made in China, but China usually exports things that are more like items. Like, I wonder if this was even made. It's even possible that like these forks are made in China, if I can figure that out. It doesn't say.
Patrick's octopus thing was made in China? Or its camera was made in China?
Yeah.
The camera didn't work, was made in China?
This doesn't actually say. Oh, no, it does. It says made in the USA. So this was actually made in the USA. But like, I bet this globe was made in China.
Chinese. Japanese.
Okay, I'm going to give you guys about 15 more minutes to finish your lunch.
Snake.
Snake? What are you talking about, snake?
Answer.
So another question that a lot of people have is, how do I teach something? I just totally hit my mic. How do I teach something that I don't know? And that's a very valid question. How do I teach something that I don't know? How can I make my kids better than me, right? Because we all want our kids to know more and be so witty and so smart and so curious and being able to accomplish all these things, right? So how do we do that? Well, let's take it back, okay? First of all, we're presuming that public school teachers or private school teachers know how to do these things. But that's not necessarily true. If you talk with like a 6th grade teacher, okay, we'll even give it 6th grade, and we'll ask about, do you know calculus? They may not know calculus. They may not know all the details about like ornithology or something. They're teaching a level of kid that they teach. That's their hyper focus. Also, those 6th grade teachers might not be particularly great at teaching in preschool. Can you teach a kid how to read? Well, no, I'm an algebra teacher. So, if you don't know how to do one thing, what makes you qualified to do another? Okay. As parents, just because we're not qualified, somebody else didn't say that we did a good enough job that we can teach somebody, it does not mean that we're not. If I need to learn how to do something, what am I going to do? Right? In this day and age, honestly, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to YouTube and see how somebody else does it. Somebody who knows what they're doing and wants to share that information. If YouTube was not an option, then I would be doing books, I would be doing videos elsewhere, I would be finding somebody who actually knows how to do that and then learning from them. One thing that I actually don't know how to do is change my own oil. I have like a general concept of it. I know that you need to lift up the car, and I know you need to unscrew something. It drains out into a pan. I don't know what you do with it after that. Maybe you pour it back into the old oil container? I don't know. I know you need to screw it back on, and I know you need to put new oil in. Okay? That's as far as I know. I don't know any of the details. My first thing that I would be doing is going to the people who do know. And if I really don't trust myself to do that particular car maintenance, I'm going to find somebody that I do trust to do it for me. I'm not going to just let my car burn up because I won't put oil in it. Just like that, a homeschool parent, if for some reason we can't figure out how to reach the level of math that our kids are at, I can't teach trig, I am going to find somebody who can teach trig. And I'm going to do it at the age that my kid needs it. If my kid needs trig in 8th grade because he's ridiculously smart and knows math and understands it and is ready to move on to that next level, I'm going to be able to do that at that level and not make him wait for junior or senior year. A lot of people think that homeschooling means only the parents teach the subjects, and that's just the farthest from the truth. Homeschooling means that the parents are deeply involved in every aspect of getting that child educated. Every aspect. Not just drop off, pick up, how are you, what'd you learn today, cool, let me help you with your homework. We help set it up. We teach our kids eventually how to set it up for themselves when they get to that age. And we really foster a lot of independence in homeschooling. So just because you don't know how to do something does not mean that you cannot learn how to do it and then teach it to your child. Or find somebody who does know how to do it and then lead your child to them and say, this person really knows how to handle this stuff. Let's learn it together, or learn it, come let me know what you learned, and we can do it that way.
So cute, baby.
You love the kitty. Yeah, you love the kitty.
It's me.
Hey boys, time to start some school.
Yeah, school time. Glass. Took the glass
Mm-hmm.
off.
Of polka.
What's polka?
So we said a glass of polka dots. So that polka is the first word in polka dots.
Orange. Stop. Done. What?
Hey buddy, how you doing?
I have the ADHD mess. It's way easier for me to do stuff like this.
Yeah.
But I still have to learn these skills, so that's why I've been doing this stuff lately.
Nice job. So how do we know that our kids are learning what they need to learn when they need to learn it? Most states have a Department of Education website that includes the standards for each grade. you can very easily go to that and see, you can check it and say, well, my kid's in 5th grade and these are the math concepts he's supposed to have learned by now, and be like, oh, we never covered that yet. Pardon me. So how can we cover that? And you absolutely can do state testing. Some states do require you to do state testing. And although there's not any repercussions for failing the testing, it does bring up that, like, well, let's touch base kind of a thing. So here in Iowa, there are a few different types of homeschooling, and I'll kind of break it down so that it's simpler. One is called independent private instruction, which is what I use. Independent private instruction has regulations as to what you need to teach, and that you need to teach it, and if a school gets in touch with you, your local school district gets in touch with you, you need to write down and say, these are the kids that I have, this is our address, and I'm teaching them. And then there's a couple other choices. Competent private instruction, which means basically you hire someone to teach. And it's got to be a licensed teacher. There's 2 different versions of that. Some of it is like, it's a teacher that you pick and you hire them. Some is the school districts provide it, and then you can use that teacher. And so it just depends on what you want. And yeah, your student can get involved with activities that the public schools offer, but they don't have to. And it can be very much tailored. There are some states that are much more strict about their requirements, New York being one of them. California is fairly strict, and it escapes me now other ones that are fairly strict. And then there are some that are not strict at all, with no recording needing to be done, no responding to anything needing to be done. Alaska is one of them. And one of the nice things about being in a state where you don't have to report back as much is that you can really tailor the needs of your student. In Alaska, a lot of the homeschoolers are people out in the villages, the native villages, and indigenous people can teach their indigenous values to the kids instead of prioritizing like Western culture stuff, which is a huge benefit. Being able to teach your culturally significant topics instead of scooting them out of the way because we need to do the 3 R's right now is a really big benefit of living in a place with not so much reporting necessary. What?
That's cute.
If you mix black with another color, then it makes it just like a darker of that color. So if you mix black and red, it would make a dark red.
Where's my pink? This?
But you need to go to the schoolroom. Protein.
Hi, Mikey.
So at lunch we had the deer sausage and the cheese. And we had bread at lunch.
Sorry. And at breakfast we had milk
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have
and
milk.
cereal.
In the cereal, you had milk.
What does this say?
Where?
This
On the
and
Engineer directional compass.
Listen to my heart and I obey. How can I see it any other way?
So while while the kids are watching some Liberty's Kids on the Boston Tea Party, I'm getting a little activity set up for later to kind of keep them going. And I've got the globe on the table still from earlier so that we can kind of talk about like where Boston was and, you know, stuff like that. So, yeah. Start dinner. And then what?
What is that spell?
Silent E.
What is it?
What says Moet?
Take ought
Out.
out. Eat.
Okay, real talk time. One of the biggest things that people bring up is they're just like, I could never do it. Or sometimes they'll even take a step further and they'll just say, I don't think I could stand being around my kid that much. Or my kids, plural. That's just a lot of time spent, like, in the presence of others, in demand, being needed. And that I can actually get behind. It's really hard to be needed all the time. Right now, my kids are in the other room. After I just begged with them, I'm like, I need 10 minutes. I need 10 minutes to finish this, okay? I can't have you interrupting me. I really need 10 minutes, okay? In a little bit. Teresa, I'm doing my video. That was not scripted. And honestly, yeah, that can be hard. But when you live a lifestyle like this, you build in breaks. And breaks can be TV time. Sure, breaks can be everybody outside, see you in half an hour. Breaks can be hiring a babysitter while you do something else. Breaks can be on the weekend when your partner's available to take over the kids. You go out for a couple hours and refresh. Even, why don't you go in the schoolroom while I'm doing this, please? Faster. Even public school teachers don't work 7 days a week. They take a weekend, and that helps to refresh them so that they can restart. And when you are homeschooling, it is important to take that time for you to refresh yourself, because you're not just schooling, you're parenting, you're cooking, you're cleaning, you may be working, you may be doing all sorts of other things. And hopefully you're doing some stuff for yourself too, some hobbies and such. So yeah, it is a lot to have your kids on you all the time. But for us, it's worth it. Because that means that they're absorbing our values instead of absorbing somebody else's. So make time for yourself. And know that your kids are still learning even if you're busy. It's okay to have different techniques and stuff in schooling. So I'll wrap up the video by showing some more instances of learning. And if you've got questions, let me know. Ready? Okay. Chapter 8, first, second. In front of the big sign on the wall was a table. On it was a small stack of books. There was no one else in the room. Fred walked over and looked at one of the books. The Names for Toenail in 300 Languages by Professor Eldwood. Ouch. So cute. Cart.
Cart. C-A-R-T.
Good. Woods.
was WOODS.
Good. Very.
Very. VER.
Good. Gone.
Gone. Created.